namaste, and a warm welcome to all of you. Uh, First of all, a thank you to every single person who's here. It's been raining in Delhi, and we've been following the news. I think storms, rains, floods. Despite all of these weather conditions, people are brave enough to venture to listen what is the idea of Viksit Bharat. So I think that itself is a good sign that people are here. So every event at Rishihood, before we begin, we start with a minute of silence. So I'm going to request everybody to keep their phones on silent and close their eyes for a minute. Home. So, once again, a warm welcome to all of you. Uh, just before we begin, a couple of things that I was hoping to share. One is, of course, this event is being organized by the Rashram School of Public Leadership, Rishihood University, and CEEW, the Council on Energy, Environment, and Water, in association with the India Habitat Center. So, a special thanks to the team at India Habitat Center, which continues to support us in these endeavors. Special thanks to Dr. KG Suresh, who's the director at India Habitat Center, who's given us support through the entire year. This is the sixth edition or the sixth talk that we've organized. Uh, we've done such talks in the past on a range of topics from administrative reforms all the way to tech sovereignty and internal security in the red corridor areas. And today we're talking about Viksit Bharat. Of course, everybody is talking about Viksit Bharat, but not enough of us have an idea of what does it actually mean. So we're lucky to have a panel of economists and development professionals and people from the government and the civil society who are here to give us a shape on what could be one such idea of Viksit Bharat. And we also have Professor Shobhit Mathur, who is the Vice Chancellor of Rishihood University, to moderate and give an academic shape to this topic. So a quick introduction about Professor Mathur. He is the Vice Chancellor of Rishihood University and an IIT Bombay alumni who did his computer science, started an organization called the Vision India Foundation, scaled it up, trained over thousands of people through that. One such alumni, I'm here standing, and Nikita, who's also an alumni of one such program of ours. And then we transitioned to the Rashtam School of Public Leadership, which has now become Rishihood University. So I think with that, I would request Shobhitji to begin the proceeding for the day. So Shobhitji, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Arvind. Welcome once again. Viksit Bharat 2047, we have been hearing a lot about this for the past few years, and the next 20 plus years are seen as this Amrit Kal that will take us towards a Viksit Bharat. So when we say this phrase Viksit Bharat, it is naturally translated to developed India. But it's not very clear what Viksit means. So how do we define this? And interestingly, there has not been offered any formal indicator that says, oh, this is what that would mean that we are Viksit now, right? Are we not already Viksit, or where we will get? We hear all types of things, and I'm sure for everybody in this room, your own imagination of Viksit Bharat would be something very different. Some people might imagine this to be, okay, we will be like Singapore, and we find some of our political parties talking about Delhi will be made into London, or this is what will happen in a few years, right? So there is no visual imagination of how Viksit Bharat will look like, and it's a qualified thing. There's a Bharat behind this. So would India have its own unique definition of how developed India should be? Because what are the development models presently in the world? You may have the American model. I mean, they are the richest country and everybody looks up to them. They have primarily followed a capitalist model and got there. Then you have China, that is of course competing with them and getting close to their heels. Right? They have a more state-driven capitalist model. Then you have the Scandinavian countries. You have the Arab nations. Right? Then maybe you have a Japan and other places. Right? So it's not very clear how a developed India with Indian characteristics will be, we need a formal definition for this, and I'm sure the deliberations today with the eminent panelists that we have, we will get there. And this is very, very important because otherwise, this will remain a mere political slogan. Today, what is the indicator that we use primarily to measure development is GDP. And all of us know that it is insufficient to capture development in its entirety. Arvind just spoke about the rains happening outside, right? Now the rains will result in flooding, it will result in potholes. There will be a vendor that comes in and fills the potholes. The road will go back to its original shape, but the GDP will rise of the country. So have we have developed, we have possibly remained there itself or got worse, but still the GDP will rise because of such type of efforts so it's definitely insufficient. Anybody you talk to would realize this, but then how do we formally capture development with Indian characteristics in a metric or multiple metrics? That is what is the conversation today. So we will have more such discussions going forward. Now, who do we have, right? So I will begin with the opening remarks from Dr. Payal Seth. So she is the lead economist and the head of Center of Data for Economic Decision Making at the Pehle India Foundation. A very interesting background, an economics background. She did her PhD from Cornell, and she came back here, is working in a think tank, and I was discussing with her before this conversation that how she is so passionate about research and she feels her research should play a role in shaping policy. But then when we look at economists, everybody has their own opinion as well, right? So there's always, oh, why didn't they say this? And what is it that they're measuring? How are they adding value, right? Things don't seem to be changing. But then it is very interesting that she's leading this effort at Pehle India Foundation. And she has a very particular view on how we can also do a decentralized calculation of development. You don't have to always have a national view or a state level view. It can also go to a district level view and many such things that she's working on. So what reforms can be brought in understanding development and what she's working on? I'll invite Payal first. Payal, please, over to you.
Thank you so much for the very warm introduction. And also thank you so much for actually inviting me here. It's my first time and I feel that I've been welcomed very nicely here. So if we could go to the presentation, then I'll start taking you through the talking points. Okay, great. All right. Yeah, so when I was given this topic, I felt like everything aligned with the research work that we have been doing at Pehle India. And I think the title of the topic that I wanted to focus on was Viksit Bharat at 2047, measuring. So we are now not just going beyond numbers, but let's just go beyond the traditional numbers. How can we actually measure the progress of Viksit Bharat at 2047? So we know that India wants to become a $30 trillion economy by 2047. But those national targets must be broken down to the state level to make it actionable. But then we see that the Indian states are actually quite as large as some of the nations. So the one-size-fits-all story doesn't work, which is why the state level targets have to be broken down to the district level. But now, and this was also what was said by our PM, that the districts need to be empowered enough to make their own decisions. But the biggest problem that we face in India is that the data, there is no data. And if there is no data, then states and districts cannot plan without data. Now, who holds the data to the states and districts? It is basically the Directorate of Economics and Statistics, the DES. And we work very closely with the DES of various states, and that is where all of our policy insights come. So largely what I will be taking you through in the presentation, largely what I will be taking you through in the presentation is our work, which is the Center of Data for Economic Decision Making. How, since we work very closely with the DES, how we strengthen their statistical systems and the district-led development. Not only should the GDP be measured from the top down, it should actually be measured at the district level where we are measuring the informal sector, which is currently not being captured in the GDP. And I will also be showing you the results from the pilot studies that we have done, and also the whole process of making the vision documents, the blueprint documents for the district, and how and how once we include the government stakeholders, the entire process changes. And that is what it would mean to have Viksit districts for Viksit Bharat. And then the policy intelligence or the policy insights that we could get from using the official surveys, the novel measures of data for economic planning, and the nowcasting, some of the nowcasting work that we have begun doing for the Maharashtra government. So this is broadly the framework that I will be taking you through. Very happy to answer any question that you have in the middle of the presentation. I'm very happy to do that and take it forward. So the first thing that I wanted to take you through is the bottom-up DDP estimation. Sorry, I think the icons are missing, but anyway, the point is that there is a top-down methodology which is currently followed, where the GDP is apportioned from the national to the state to the district level based on some ratios which are not reflected on the ground reality. What we are proposing is that actually the bottom-up approach, basically the economic work should be captured at the district level, and that should be capturing the labor which is there in the informal sector, and then it should be done bottom up. So basically the gross domestic product should be flowing from the district to the state to the national level, and this is what we should be doing. So without taking you through a lot of details, but let me just give you like a broader picture, not taking you through the depth but taking you through the width. So there are three sectors in the economy: the primary, secondary, tertiary. For the primary sector, we anyway have the bottom-up data. All of the data that comes, the crop yield, the crop prices, all of them anyway come from the ground. So that is not a problem. But when we come to the secondary sector and when we come to the tertiary sector, there are certain ratios which MOSPI has anyway decided as to how the state should be doing it for the districts. So we are saying that instead of using those ratios, we should be doing two surveys: the labor force survey and the survey of the unincorporated sector firms. This gives us the informal sector GVA, because there we go and survey all of the informal sector firms. We try to ask their input cost, we try to ask their output cost, and then we have a better sense of the GVA. So this is broadly what we should be doing. I will not be taking you through the basic differences. I think we can go in case you have more questions. But this is very interesting. Let me show you what happened. There's a robust proof of concept. So we did a pilot survey in 4 districts in UP. It was done in Meerut, Varanasi, Kanpur, and Gorakhpur. And if you'll see the first slide, the manufacturing sector, so the difference, so this graph is showing the percentage change in the GVA from bottom up minus top down. So once we captured the informal sector at the district level, we found out that the manufacturing sector GVA basically doubled. The difference between the bottom up and the top down was 99 percentage points. So once we are capturing, so this is the more accurate way of capturing GDP at the district level, and this is what we should be doing. Very heartening, yeah, I don't have that slide, but I can quickly add that MOSPI actually accepted our official recommendation, and now there has been a mandate which has been sent to the states that all of them should actually be doing this DDP work now. So now all the states are actually engaged in capturing the informal sector at the district level. Another very interesting thing is making the vision documents. Now, it's one thing to get the right data from the field, but how do you transform that data to policy insights? So this is one activity that we did for Assam, where we actually met with the district level people of across 35 districts of Assam. And the kind of people we had in the committee, the district level committee, sorry, I'm trying to move the clicker, can we... Yeah, so these are all of the people that we have, like right from the DC to basically the forest officer, to the fisheries, to the municipal board. We had all of these people who were there in the committee, and the kind of questions we asked from them. So we had like a two-part question. One was the budgeting. Are you happy with the budget, the utilization of the budget? Part B was basically the SWOT. We wanted to understand their strengths, their weakness, their opportunities, and their cost. So once we did all of this extensive exercise by speaking with the stakeholders, then we went to the DCs and we asked them, what are the 3 potential areas that you see that your district can grow from? So what we found out was that the DCs were very candid in their responses. Next slide, please. Yeah, the districts were very candid in their responses. Like one of the districts said that the 3 potential area that he clearly knows is the food processing and export, and then the inland water transport for the economy, and so on and so forth. So the DCs have a very clear vision as to how their district should be growing. But then triangulating it with the data that we get from the field, and then talking with the stakeholders, and then making the vision documents. Like, that is very important exercise that we should all be doing if we really want to become Viksit Bharat by 2047. Another very important research, Assam. This was in Assam. Yeah, this was one of the districts in Assam, and if I'm not wrong, this was the Kamrup Metro district where we got this response from. All right. Then we have the advanced use of official surveys. Now, another very important thing. So, as you all know, the Pehle India Foundation was founded by Dr. Rajiv Kumar, who was the former vice chairman of Niti Aayog. So, when we were conversing with him, he was also saying the same thing. It's one thing that India wants to become a so and so $1 trillion economy by 2047, but what is happening to the bottomest percentile, the bottomest decile of India? Do we have an answer to that? Because that will tell us if we are on the right path or not. So then Shri Ashish Kumar and I, so Shri Ashish Kumar is the president of the vertical that I head, and he's also the former DG of MOSPI. So we went back to the drawing board, and then we said, can we try to answer that? Can we try to answer a very important research question? What happened to the last decile in the last decade? So when we tried to answer that research question, we realized that there was a data void because there was no official consumption data since 2011 to 2023. There was such a void that we couldn't really answer that question. In fact, the Ministry of Finance report said that what has happened to extreme poverty in India since 2011-12 has no answer. So we were the first study to actually do this because the survey came out, the household consumption expenditure survey came out in 2023-24, and the last survey came out in 2011-12. So using these two surveys, we were able to answer this question. And let me tell you exactly what we did. So in 2011-12, the variable that we are using is called the MPCE, monthly per capita consumption expenditure. So if a person is spending less than 710 rupees per month, then they were classified as bottom 10% in 2011-12. We just adjusted this 710 rupees to the inflation, and where we got 1331 rupees, and then we took this 1331 rupees and we just put it in the 23-24 data, and then we tried to see how many people were below 1331 rupees, and that just turned out to be 0.47% people. The annual inflation we took, if you see at the bottom here, sorry, I'm trying to, yeah, here, it was 1.87 and 1.84. The CPI multiplier that we took. Yes, the CPI multiplier, yeah. So this was the CPI multiplier that we use. So what we are seeing is that from bottom 10%, our population, like the people who were facing the extreme poverty, the bottom 10% has now come down to just 0.47%. That's all. So the bottom 10% has actually seen the impact of development, and this is what I think we should also be aiming. Like, it should be reaching the last, what do you call it? The last mile, you know, that is where it should be reaching. Of course, out of curiosity, we wanted to know what happened to the rest of the 9.5% of the people. You'll see that they have all moved to the upper deciles. Sorry. You'll see that they have all moved to the upper deciles here. So if in the 10%, 0.47 remain, but all of them have moved to the upper deciles. For the rural areas, they have moved to the 50th decile. For the urban areas, mostly they have moved to the 40th decile. When we try to quantify the number as to how they have moved, 11.45 crore people have moved out of the extreme poverty since the past decade. And what is very interesting was that earlier we adjusted for inflation just for the bottom 10%, but once we try to do it for the entire population, you'll see that the curves here, so this is the curve for the entire population, not only did it shift right, both for the rural and urban, but the curves also became flatter, which means that not only did the growth happen, but the growth happened in a lot more fairer manner. So this is very interesting. We think it happened because of two reasons. First, there was a trickle-down impact of the which was bound to happen, but also the equalizing role of the welfare policies and the safety nets, which made the growth happen in a lot more fairer manner. All right. We got the study peer-reviewed by Dr. Saurabh Garg, and Dr. Kumar was also there, and Professor Mahendra Dev. And then we had Professor Pami Dua, Professor T.C. Anand, and Dr. Prachi Desai.
All of them were in agreement, and in fact, Professor Mahendra Dev asked MOSPI to take note of the study because this was the first empirical evidence that we had shown and proven that not only have we grown, but we have grown more fairly in the past decade. So this study was very, very well received. But these are some alternate methods that we should be keeping in mind when we are thinking of Viksit Bharat. Like, this is how it should be. I will not, so this is another paper that sort of motivated us to see how the labor has changed in the past 10 decades, how basically the employment situation has changed in the past decade. I'll not be taking you through the entire paper, but I will just be taking you through one slide. So here we are looking at how the employment has changed from 2011-12 to 23-24, and we are using the labor force participation data. And you will see very interestingly that for the rural India, for the rural men, there has been a drop from the farming sector, and there has been a rise in the construction of building sector. So a lot of the men that moved out of farming went into a not so good employment, like it's not skilled. They went to the construction sector. So this is also one thing that we should be keeping in mind. Are we just focusing on the employment? Are we just focusing on the employment numbers, or are we also focusing on the quality of employment? Are we doing enough to skill the people in India? So that's one thing that we should be keeping in mind. Again, another very very interesting thing that we work on is called the novel measures of data for economic planning. Here, we are actually going beyond the GDP numbers, and let's look at a lot of other things that can be used as a proxy to know the structure of the state economy. We are using the GST data, nightlights data, the EPF net payroll data, the e-way bills, the satellite data, etc. So one very important research that we did was we sort of correlated GST with the non-agricultural gross domestic product since 2017 till date, and you will see that they are moving in sync with each other. Now, basically the importance of this is for the years where GDP is coming with a lag, or for the years where we need to take very important decisions. For instance, it's the COVID or something, GST can actually be used as a very good proxy for this. So when we are looking at the alternate measures of data where we need to take important decisions, GST is one of them. Not only GST, actually, nighttime lights is also one of them. You will see that both, like in the graphs, the log of night lights and the log of the log of GDP, they're moving in lockstep with each other. They both actually fell down when there was COVID. But very interestingly, this relationship also holds at the subnational level. This thing also holds for Maharashtra or for, say, Bihar. But very interestingly, you'll see that the Maharashtra graph is following its natural, way, like both of them are going at the same time. But for Bihar, the blue line, which is the log of nightlights, is rising at a rate faster than the log of GSDP. Probably because nightlights is capturing something which GSDP is not, and that is the informal sector. Again, which is a huge problem which our national accounts doesn't capture. So this is where these measures can come into play and give us a more truer picture of the economy for us to take better decisions. And again, we also focus a lot on using electricity consumption as a high frequency proxy for the manufacturing output. Because manufacturing output, a lot of... For this we used the annual survey of industries, microdata. So this is the firm level electricity used and the manufacturing sector GVA. Got it. Yeah. And you'll see that the correlation is 0.99. Again, this relationship holds at the state level and at the subsector level. Okay, so you'll see that this relationship held at the state level, especially for the manufacturing-led states. It also holds at the subsector level. And this is a very funny picture that we wanted to include, that Elon Musk also said the same thing, that electricity output is the single best proxy for the industrial capacity. So, we got validation from Elon Musk. But yeah, okay. Another very important thing that we should be doing is, can we use satellite data to fight poverty in India? Yes, we can, and we actually have a proof of that. Here we use the satellite data. So one of our data scientists actually mapped 512 factors from the satellite data. It was the type of road, it was the type of roof, it was the night lights and the population density. And we built a use case for UP. So the darker blue, you will see where he found that there was more poverty. The lighter one was where there was less poverty. Of course, we wanted to validate it against some official figures. So here we use Niti Aayog's multi-dimensional poverty index, and you will see that there also it was only in the western and the eastern places where we see that the poverty was a lot more. So obviously surveys are the best way to go about it, but just in case surveys cannot be done, we should be actively using satellite data as a proxy for all of these things. All right. Then we use the EPFO data to find out the impact of AI on employment in India. Again, sorry, it's not, yeah. The EPFO data gives us the formal net payroll trends, and we have that information by age groups. The very natural question that came to my mind was, since AI has been introduced in November 2022, do we see any trends before and after? So when we did the simple plotting on the graph, we don't really see any trends before and after, but this is also like basically a visualization problem. So when we took the percentage differences, you will see that the lines that are at the top, which are exhibiting the higher age groups, are growing at a rate which is faster than the lines which are at the end, which is the younger age groups. So when we took the percentage differences, we found out that the hiring rates for the younger age groups have slowed down after the launch of AI. And this is exactly what the Stanford study also found out. Like the Stanford did a paper where they tried to track the employment, the impact of AI on employment in the US, and they also found out that it is the younger cohorts which are facing the same thing. So these are all of the metrics that we should be taking in mind, and especially when it comes to the younger cohorts, because if they're the ones who are getting so impacted by AI, then what does it translate to the policy insights? All right. Another very interesting thing that we did was using e-way bills as a structure to look at the structure of the state economies. So e-way bills gives us three information: the goods that are coming in the state, the goods that are going out of the state, and the goods which are moving within the state. So for Bihar, you will see the green line, which is actually showing the goods which are coming in the state, and the red line, which is showing the goods which are going out of the state. There is a ratio of 1:5. So, and the structure of the economy has not changed. So basically, Bihar has still been importing a lot more goods than it has been sending out since the past 8 or 9 years. But for Gujarat, the goods it has been sending out is a lot more than the goods that have been coming in. But you'll see the blue line, which is the movement of the goods within the state, has actually been rising, maybe because the domestic markets are growing, basically their demand is growing, and also because it's a port city, so probably the goods are also moving. So we can actually track the structure of the states using the e-way bills data as well. All right, UPI intensity across the states, and then using grievances data to track the effectiveness of the government. I'm gonna skip these slides for the want of time. But again, a very interesting thing that I did want to point out is, if we put all of this high frequency data in a macroeconometric framework, what happens is we actually get nowcasting. So what nowcasting is just like forecasting, but it can tell you what is the value of the gross domestic product real time right now. So it uses all of the high frequency data sets like GST and e-way bills, like GST and e-way bills and electricity and cargo and so on and so forth. So we can use all of that. So you'll see all of these colorful lines since 2005. So this is the movement of the 35 high frequency data sets, and this black line sort of boils down all of that information into one. And then we use this black line to predict or to nowcast what is our gross domestic product. So our model actually showed that the nowcasted one was 7.1, whereas the official growth rate was 7.4%. So our numbers were very, very close. But this nowcasting can actually be very, very useful, again, when there's a lag in the official data coming out. We did the nowcasting exercise for the Maharashtra for the Maharashtra GSDP, and we'll see that the numbers are again very, very close to each other. So this is one thing that can be done to make sure that our decisions are taken in an effective manner. I think sum up why data matters. I don't even think I need to explain to this audience why data matters, because it is only when we have the right data and then we have the right questions and we are using the data to answer those right questions that can districts and states become two partners in our growth story. Yeah, and that is all that I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Payal. I think She summed up her presentation. First of all, I think the data void, you began with that. So do we actually have data at the granular level, at the district level? Because unless you have data, how do you build policy on top of that? Secondly, are there metrics beyond GDP? And you had some very interesting proxies for GDP and how they could together capture is there a more equitable development happening? Is it happening at the district level, both geographically or within the income levels? So yes, I think it is kind of giving us an indication of there are alternate ways to do things, and of course more and more data is needed, and not everything has to be collected from government. There are proxies for that. But we are always very curious that actually is the government looking at all these things. So we have our next speaker, Nikita, who is here, and she is from the Indian Economic Survey. She's the Deputy Director, Department of Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Finance. And she's also been a part of the 16th Finance Commission. She's an alumnus of Rishihood University as well. So what we would be curious to know is, how does government see all this? Is there a headline number that they track to think about Viksit Bharat? How does this data feed into policy making? So Nikita, your views. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It is a privilege for me to be here and sharing the panel with diverse people with diverse experiences and fields, academia, research, food systems, and I'm very happy to be a part of this. So I would also like to thank Rashtraman School of Public Leadership, Rishihood University, CEEW, and India Habitat Center for convening this evening. When we speak of Viksit Bharat 2047, the conversation naturally begins with an economic number, which is generally we think in terms of an GDP estimation. But I personally feel that the concept or the idea of Viksit Bharat is not just an economic concept. It's it's a more holistic view of seeing how India would look after 20 years. What would India look like after 20 years from now? Stronger local government, higher in public trust in institutions, communities, cleaner air, water, environment. So it's not just an economic perspective which we are looking at, but there are many other things also. So I think just by becoming rich, a country doesn't say, we cannot say that a country is developed just because it's rich. So you need to go beyond beyond economics, beyond these numbers. And I think the view in the government as well is that I would also definitely take this entire topic from my own experiences, from the different vantage points, from my different postings which I've had. It's been 5 years, 6 years I would say with the government now. I joined Indian Economic Services in 2020, and my first posting was in Niti Aayog. So I would say that I would start with my experience from Niti Aayog and what I did, and I would want to explain how we were looking at it from the government inside. So in Niti Aayog, I was actually a part of a team which is called Project Appraisal and Management Division, which looks after the projects, any project which is 500 crore above, which is appraised by the government. So that was one part of it. And apart from that, I was also working with the Aspirational District Program. I think most of you would have heard about it. So that was also there. And then Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, which is also an attached office of Niti Aayog, and it looks after the outcome monitoring framework and evaluation of different schemes of the government of India. So from all these experiences, I would say that I would go into the details of it, but my time at Niti Aayog, I think the most important lesson was that development is ultimately realized in the districts, in the blocks, and not merely by the macro picture, which is given by a lot of by the ministry or by academia or anywhere else. And it's not just a macro picture which we should be looking at. It is actually happening at the grassroots levels, especially from my experience from the aspirational district program. I think that when we were looking at the indicators of the states, so there were 112 districts identified by the government which were aspirational. We would not use the term backward. That was what the thinking was, that we should not be saying that these are the backward districts, because there have been a lagged economic, social basic infrastructural lag which has happened in these districts. But it doesn't mean that they cannot grow. There's a lot of potential, there's a lot of aspiration within the people who are living in these districts, and that is why the entire name of this program was Aspirational Districts Programs, to identify and to actualize the potential these districts have. So I would also give you an example. Like, a lot of times we think that the macro picture is not complete in itself. So Maharashtra is the top performing state in terms of the contribution to the GDP. But if you see that what is happening within the districts of Maharashtra, there are a few districts which are actually aspirational. There were 4 districts in Maharashtra, Gadchiroli, I think Osmanabad, Washim, all these districts which is a part of Maharashtra, and a lot of times the macro numbers conceal significant variations on the ground. So it was very important to identify what is happening within the districts. And I think, as Payal mentioned, a lot of the indicators, I would not go into the details of all of them, but to be honest, I have looked at a lot of data myself. And even in the Finance Commission, when I was in Finance Commission, the satellite data you mentioned, so we might not publish everything out there, whatever we're using inside, but we've used a lot of high frequency data indicators to see how urbanization has been happening in India, what has been the trend in the past few years, and all of that. So a lot of data goes into all of this decision making behind, which might not be published, but definitely within the inner circles, we are already always discussing that why is this number behaving like this, or why is the trend not in the direction we had thought. So I believe that the national and the state policies might give you a direction of how it should be moving, but the actual implementation is what is shaping the country, and that is happening at the district and the block level, and even at the local panchayat level. So which is something I, in my second experience in Finance Commission, I would come to it. That was another interesting thing which I learned there. So another experience with the Development Monitoring Evaluation Office was that a lot of times we see in the headline newspapers in every budget that this year we have allocated this X amount or Y amount, or this is a very huge budget allocation done to a particular ministry and all of that, and people get excited by it. But I personally feel that what is more important is how these numbers are actually translating into outcomes. And this is what I was doing in the DMEO office, which is basically not just tracking that what was the budget allocated, but it tracks inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Outputs are the numerical thresholds. You would say that if you have tried to say that Jal Jeevan Mission mein aapko suppose 1,000 taps, just hypothetical numbers, that 1,000 taps you have to put, and you have to ensure that 1,000 households are getting the water. This would be an output, right? And the output is met, but still the outcome of this scheme is one step ahead, which is basically that maybe that water is not usable, maybe that water is not clean. So doesn't matter that the 1,000 houses have got the water, but it's not usable. How does it matter for the people who are living there? So the outcomes were more subjective. It is not very easy to capture outcomes all the time. A lot of times I myself was stuck for the farmer scheme. I was looking after the Ministry of Agricultural schemes, and I was stuck that how do you actually capture the outcome, because the outcome would be that finally the farmer should have a better life. Now, there are so many different ways to look at it. I mean, how do you actually capture and measure that? It was a very difficult exercise, but I was happy that the government has been doing it, and every year we are refining it. It will take time. I don't think so that the framework which we have is perfect right now. It's far from perfect. But every year this exercise was happening, where we were consulting within the government, with the ministries, and outside also. We used to do a lot of studies also, and get people from external sources also, to understand how can we refine and we can strengthen the outcome monitoring framework. So that was one. So after my Niti Aayog stint, I went to Finance Commission, the 16th Finance Commission. I personally loved it, loved working with the 16th Finance Commission. It was the best so far. And the reason is, firstly, I'll just mention what the Finance Commission does. It basically decides the tax devolution between the state and the center for the next 5 years. So it's an interesting body, it's a constitutional body which is constituted every 5 years. So for me, it was interesting because when I was getting promoted, that year itself, the commission was getting formed. So it was also interesting in the sense that I got the opportunity. Otherwise, it will now happen after 5 years. So the best part was that there was a lot of technical work which happened, and the commission actually travels to all the states of the country, 28 states. Everybody, the entire team, the entire commission travels to all the states, and I had an opportunity to travel to 6 states of the country with the commission. And the best part was that till now, till I joined commission, I was always sitting in my ministry office and doing all the work and everything. I used to miss that experience of going to the field, interacting with people and understanding the stakeholders, because I think that any developmental process is incomplete without the stakeholders' perspective. It doesn't matter what you are doing if you're not taking into account the people who you are doing it for. So it is extremely important to take that stakeholder perspective. So I think, what I learned from the commission was that we had a lot of meetings with the panchayats, the local bodies. Every state we had a format to be meeting with the panchayats, with the local bodies, with the municipal commissioners, with the trade bodies, with the civil societies and the political bodies. So all of these meetings used to happen in every state. So what struck me the most was that if you ask Viksit Bharat ka definition from a person who is in the panchayat in Goa, compared versus to a person in the panchayat in Assam, it was so different. I myself was just, I was just struck to understand when I went to Goa, the villages were actually not villages there. If you see the kind of revenue a village in Goa is earning compared to the revenue which Bihar is earning, Assam is earning, it's so different. You will not actually understand that a lot of beaches you guys might have been traveled to, they are actually panchayats. They actually come under the panchayat system. So that was very interesting, and also it also draws an important lesson that there is no single definition of development. It depends on the context, it depends on which state, which stakeholder you're talking about. So it keeps on, I would not say the end goal might be same, but in the context it's very different for each stakeholder, for each state, everybody. So that taking that picture into consideration while framing the devolution percentage was a huge task for the commission. And I myself was, I used to think when we went to Goa or when we went to Maharashtra, so the people would say that the equality perspective should not be overpowering the efficiency perspective. Because people would say that if we are contributing more, if Maharashtra is contributing more taxes, we should be given a better share of it. But if you go to Bihar, if you go to UP, you will understand that people there would say that if we don't have the means in itself to have a better revenue, how do you ask us to give you a better share? And on that basis, you're going to give us more money. So there's a constant tussle between equality, and efficiency. So very difficult for the government to also actually, nobody can be happy. Ultimately, even when the report came out, I knew that before the report would come out, there would be a lot of discussion around it. Nobody would be ultimately happy. Center would think कि state को शायद ज़्यादा कम दे सकते थे. Center को लगेगा. It's always, it's a very tight rope to walk on. And I still think that our job was to do the best from our side. The rest will ultimately, obviously, it will pan out in a few years to see that how the revolution did. But I think a few recommendations which were very different from the previous commissions, which I would like to mention, and why that happened also. First would be that the commission actually gave a lot of money to the local bodies this year. It was almost doubled from the 15th Finance Commission. It was 7.9 lakh crore rupees this time. So why that happened was because that the thought process that how much should it be devolved to the local bodies, this thought process translated or shifted to that how the local governments can become more capable institutions of development in itself. So this concept of getting them dependent on you shifted that how can they become independent wheels of development in itself. So there was a lot of focus on the local body grants this year, tied, untied grants, all of those conversations. Those are too technical, so I'm not sure if how many people would know about it. But basically, we try to give more power in the hands of the local people so that they could decide that where they want to spend. Initially, there was a lot of tied grants by the 15th Finance Commission, where basically you would be told that this is where you have to spend, this is the area. But when we traveled throughout the country, we realized that we gave a lot of funds for water, sanitation and all. But that particular issue might not be relevant at all for a different panchayat in a different state. They don't need taps. I mean, for Goa in itself, they were so good with their infrastructure. I thought that they don't need anything. They needed more money for tourism. They could make better parkings for the people who are going to come. There were completely different issues compared to districts or compared to panchayats in different areas. So we then tried to give more untied grants so that the panchayats themselves can decide where they want to spend. So it also comes with a lot of trust in the local government, that you need to trust them, that they are going to take best decisions for themselves. So I think that's also a part of evolution of a country, that you have to trust the institutions and they have to do things to make you trust as well. So that was one learning from the Finance Commission experience. And I think the best part was that you do so much technical work. You're estimating I was in the debt projection team. Basically, I was in projecting what the debt numbers would look like after 10 years. And apart from that, you also get to travel. So that was, I think, a very interesting experience within the government. After that, recently, in December, I was posted in the International Economic Relations Division, which is in Ministry of Finance, Department of Economic Affairs. So this is completely different from what I've done so far. And I'm telling you these experiences because I want to tell that how within the government we are looking at Viksit Bharat, or how every vertical, every division, every department has their own way of achieving this aspiration which we have kept for ourselves. So after working so much with NITI and with Finance Commission, I was always into the center state dynamics. And now coming completely to a different field, this gives me a global picture of how I was just so much into ki center state, national kya chal raha hai. When I came to International Economic Relations Division, I realized that there is so much happening in the geopolitics which is also driving what is happening in our country. So much happening, and especially in the past few years where things have been so volatile in terms of the economic wars, so many things happening in the geopolitical scenario which has been contributing a lot. So I feel that Viksit Bharat cannot be in isolation. It has to be seen that how globally we are positioning ourselves also. So for this, I would also say that so far it's been just 4 or 5 months for me to be working in this team. But what I've observed is that as I think in the starting, Shobhit ji also mentioned that this concept of economic prosperity, measuring GDP and other capitalistic systems, or many other economic systems, I should not say capitalistic, economic systems have been defined in a way which has been somebody's definition, right? This was definition by the West maybe, that how should GDP how should we be capturing GDP? But now I think with the things changing and how we are also, not just India, I would say other emerging economies and developing economies as well, they have started to have their own voices in the global systems. What development should look like. I would give you an example of BRICS and G20. So multilateral development banks and all of these institutions which have been formed in 1945 with the Bretton Woods, which are also called Bretton Woods institutions. So they were framed in a particular context and in a particular era, I would say. But now they have very less quotas for countries like ours. We don't have much say when it comes to IMF. We don't have much say when it comes to how these loans should be given to different countries. But we bear the brunt of it because certain countries which get these loans are using it for XYZ reasons, and we are bearing the brunt of it. So India has been voicing that how MDB reforms, it is so important for us. In 2023 New Delhi Declaration, when India had its presidency, G20 presidency, so we tried to voice this important issue on the global front, and now it has actually become a voice of the global south. So many different countries who have realized that it is so important for the MDB to reforms to give developing countries also their fair share, their share in the quotas. So that is so important. So now I am trying to, this is very different what I'm doing, but this is also, I am seeing the impact. It is not as easy to see the impact as I've seen in my previous work, I would say. But here it is also extremely important to give a new definition of development in the global forum and make it an accepted definition. So development might not just be GDP, and especially for a country like ours, I feel, which has historically and civilizationally having so much to contribute to the global world, I feel it is so important to have our own narrative of what development should look like. So I will end my speech with this. I just hope that, for me personally, I would just say one line, that what development or what I would like to see 2047. So one thing would be that if a child born today is having a greater opportunity than what their parents have had, and not just economic opportunities, I would say opportunities in terms of social capital which their parents have preserved, environmental resources, intergenerational equity, and so many other aspects. If all of these things are sorted, I would think that the next generation, then we have done good job as a country. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikita, for taking us through your career and telling us actually how the inside of the government works. Because when we look at it from outside, we sometimes believe, do they even listen to all this? Do they have an understanding of this? But you are saying that, of course, you're looking at most of these indicators and you are actually going on the ground and taking feedback. And most interesting for me was how development models have to be decentralized and different for different parts of the country. You can't have one size fits all. We always know about this, but unless this is done at a policy level, it will not translate into the change that we want. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So we'll have everybody done within the time allotted. Don't worry. We'll give you a chance, sir, to speak. We'll just get done with the two speakers, and then we'll have chance for audience questions. So no, the session is still 8:30. It is still 8:30. So don't worry about that. No, that's fine. So I'll have Apoorve come in next. Apoorve has been a long-time friend. He's been an engineer who's gone into doing an MBA, working for the corporates, and then now he's working at CEEW for their food systems program. So this is going to be very different. I think he himself personally, through his life journey, has looked at the world from different lenses, and now he's here to talk about food systems, because something what Nikita mentioned towards the end about sustainability, intergenerational equity, something that is beyond the market and the numbers. And Apoorve has been working on this because numbers don't always capture everything. So please tell us, how do we look beyond the numbers, Apoorve? Yes, over to you.
Thank you. And first of all, gratitude for this opportunity of being amongst this amazing panel and amongst you on such an important topic. I'll start with the Shobhiji, what you started by framing these important countries, US, China, Middle East. They emerged and they grew because they had certain benefits, certain strengths, and they were in certain time of some certain temporal benefits that they had. If India has to grow, we need to discover what would be our strengths and what particular threats we'll have to take care of. And from that sort of SWOT analysis, India's development model should come and should be emerging, and at least the options that should emerge from that analysis. But as we go through that conversation, I think what we also need to appreciate amongst ourselves is that we need to also develop a muscle to not keep on doing the same job, same kind of analysis that we have been doing for all this while. Because I think institutionally and individually we have developed muscles to think of 2 years, 5 years. That's how, at least in policy research, at least my last 5 years, I've seen a lot of times within the governments also. That's the time horizon we are trying to solve for. And this time we have an opportunity to think of 20 plus years. So I think we need to elevate the possibility planes that we are discussing, and we need to be much bolder in our imagination. Then only I think we can make the best out of this opportunity. Otherwise, we are at risk of just creating Viksit Bharat plans, Viksit state plans, Viksit district plans, but still driven by the same institutional capacity, institutional way of looking at things, and maybe just repeating the same past. So with that, I will keep this conversation at principles level. 4 principles I thought I'll share with you. with some examples to make it tangible, but I think in the limited time, that's where I will keep my conversation. First principle, and some of these principles we are actively trying to reflect and work at CEEW also. The first principle, I think, that should become part of a potential developmental approach model that India should pursue towards Viksit Bharat is capitalizing on green economy to unlock job-intensive growth. What is green economy? We generally would imagine it is renewable energy, solar, EVs, maybe other suggestions. What else you would think of what is green economy? Any creative ideas? Yes, sustainable farming. What else is green economy? Yeah, indeed. We need to have that stretched vision for green economy. So green economy is also circular economies, right? So circular value chains. So our electronics system is just ballooning, and we'll have to recycle them, and that is green economy. The plastics, recycling them is green economy. Your wastewater that can be reused for farming is green economy. Our garments, I don't quote me on this, but I think 80% plus of what we are wearing is all coming from crude feedstock and no more cotton and other biomaterials. That needs to be then recycled. It is going to be green economy. Green economy is also bioeconomy and nature-based solutions. So farming, sustainable farming is green economy. Entire bamboo-based economy is green economy. Seaweed is green economy. New age fibers, pineapple and banana and water hyacinth fibers based clothing is green economy. Ecotourism is green economy. Biofuels and nutraceuticals are green economy. I think we need to really broaden our view on what is green economy, and it has a particular role going ahead. It will enable. Uh, Let me take a step back. So we are also looking at those many trillions as growth, but we are also looking at by 2070 we need to have a net zero. The only way to achieve that growth, that prosperity and net zero is that you invest in green economy. But India will be growing in times of automation and AI. That means we need to also solve for jobs, because we are increasingly becoming uncertain about our jobs. So we need job intensive growth. And interestingly, green economy can offer that, because the bioeconomy that I was talking about, a lot of the feedstock, a lot of the value chains start from hinterlands of India, right? And because of that decentralized nature of production of that biomass, and its localized processing and then aggregation and then serving the overall economy, because of that decentralized nature, it will by design have much more job creation as part of it. So I think that is one clear design component that we need to consider as we think of India's growth model. In fact, CEEW did an analysis, a national analysis last year, where we sized what this green economy could mean for India. We looked at around 36 value chains, and that's not entire green economy. And the numbers were very exciting. What we noted is that by 2047, green economy can potentially unlock 1.1 trillion USD. Just those 36 value chains can unlock 1.1 trillion out of those 30 trillion that we are imagining, and can create 4.8 crore jobs and attract approximately USD 4.1 trillion worth of investment. So that is the opportunity we're looking at. Second principle that I want to propose is investing in our non-market infrastructure. And that is the social capital that, Nikita, you talked about. That is also the natural capital that we need to invest in, and you also talked about that. So very glad that inside the government we're talking about it. I work on the ecology side, so I can talk about this for many hours, but just one example I will take. What does it mean to invest in, and why it is important for India's development model to invest in these capitals? Soil is the most critical asset that sustains the entire agriculture. Unfortunately, it is dying. It's a huge risk of degradation. More than 50% of India's cultivable land has much lower than idle organic matter, the soil organic carbon. What does that mean? It means, one, it is lifeless. Second, it requires much more fertilizer to produce the same yield. It means that it retains much less water, absorbs much less water, therefore requires much more irrigation. Many of us may be aware of this, but just for everyone's understanding, that's what it means. And when the soil degrades, our farmers are compensating with putting bags and bags of fertilizer, pumping out a lot of groundwater, and our yields are so uncertain. The immunity that the farm should have is no more there. So what is happening? We are importing million tons of fertilizer, and therefore now we are at risk of that supply chain vulnerability. We are aware of what happened at the Strait of Hormuz, and then suddenly the fertilizer crisis came up. Not only investing in natural capital will reduce our structural dependence on the fertilizer, and I think this is a very translatable principle. You invest in your natural capital, you do not require a lot of artificial economy that is just required because your natural assets are not delivering as effectively. Your natural assets deliver effectively, you don't need that unnecessary economy that exists. That pothole economy that you talked about, that is just trying to bring us back to the same state, that all money can actually be invested in building genuine assets. So last year the budget of subsidies, fertilizer subsidy was 170 lakh crore. This year we are expecting this to go beyond 3 lakh crores and even higher. Imagine all that money could actually go to build more genuine assets and genuine growth. So that's, yes please. No, go ahead. Sorry, which 7.4?
He said 7.4%
Oh, yeah.
GDP growth rate, yeah.
No, I just heard 7.4. I didn't hear anything else. You're not audible.
Very good question, very good ideas. So you say that 7.4 would be better served if that fertilizer subsidy wasn't doubled. This is the contradiction.
Oh yeah. So that's about what in GDP is getting measured, right? And that's where I think some of the work on.
That's why you're talking beyond the GDP number,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. Perhaps they're talking beyond GDP, and obviously we're discussing quantitative and qualitative. But if you want to increase the qualitativeness of that GDP, the GDP's qualitative part is what you're trying to do, then all her surveys and her satellite of electricity, they all go out of the window, because I don't think she's making a distinction between how much of that light usage is actually.
So I think we should keep the question to his talk,
sure.
and then we will have an audience question where there's obviously quantitative versus qualitative, as you are saying. Yeah.
The fact that, the subsidies had not been doubled.
The GDP numbers would have changed. I mean, would change if you don't invest.
7.4,
Yeah.
But it could be too. If she has a solution.
Yeah.
Please, yeah.
Let me just conclude the natural capital point by saying the healthier the natural capital, the more possibilities that the same economic activity has to creating actual well-being. Similarly, social capital, and let's just double click what are the social capitals that we are interested in. I want to refer to a case that I studied. It's from Jhabua in MP. This district has a social practice of Halma, where they do community-led problem solving in a way, where they basically pool their shared labor, they invest in, and then they together create ponds, other commons, and other community structures. Now, when they are doing this, all that grant that could go to that district can actually be now used for other purposes than just creating those ponds, right? So now the community agency and resources, if come to solve for the local problems, that grant is available for additional well-being creation. And then that's just one case. So I come from Marwadi communities, and a lot of trading communities had this practice and still have a practice of keeping a Bhai Khata, where there is a account separately called Dharmada or Dashansh, where you allocate money that you will invest in local services. A lot of my community folks would put pyao, etc., on the railway stations, etc. Again, community is coming to solve for local problems, then all the government expenditures, investment or private investment can actually solve for other value generation, other asset creation. And that's the power of this social capital that we have, that institution that we have. And I think my favorite word to explain this is deep social responsibility. It's not corporate social responsibility delivered by the highest in the economic pyramid. It's delivered by individuals. It's really deep in our society, that deep social responsibility. I think we need to capitalize on that. That's principle 2, capitalizing our non-market infrastructure that we have, and which is very unique to India. Third, I have time? Okay, I will 2-3 minutes, that's what I've been told. Let me just get through this. Third, another strength that we need to capitalize on is that diversity. It's, I think, romanticized a lot, but we really are not looking at the value it can create. The general economic system is solving for efficiency. It is not as good at solving for resilience, and that's what we're seeing around us. Diversity by design enables resilience in the system. Unfortunately, because the market forces generally and the market economic system is generally looking for scales in economies of scale, generally more homogeneous solutions scale up and diversity reaches to margins. That's what in general has been happening. But if India needs to grow successfully in the times of such climate vulnerabilities, these national security vulnerabilities, the supply chain vulnerabilities, we need to solve for resilience and therefore a diverse, redundant system. Let me take some examples from my own work. A popular example in my space is the number of rice varieties we have. It is said that we had around 1 lakh rice varieties in India. Now they have all vanished, and we are working with around 6,000 rice varieties, with only handful actually grown in majority of India. What that does is it all those local context specific resilient varieties are gone. Now you are having monocultures. They are at significant risk of climate impact. And I can go with multiple examples just to say that diversity naturally will get vanished unless the system that we, or the economic or the development model that we come up with saves or solves for diversity. I believe there, unless the people demand diversity, start appreciating diversity, it cannot happen. So if I, as a consumer of tea, another sector I worked with in my past life, if I think every tea is the same, it is just black, you need to boil with milk and just make a kadha out of it and consume, you don't appreciate what a tea is. You go to China, you go to Japan, they appreciate what tea is. They know what are the various nuances, and therefore there is a demand for diverse teas that exist there, not in India. Because as a consumer, as people, we don't appreciate diversity. And therefore, I think the one important part of India's development approach needs to be deep social and citizen engagement to elevate our understanding of what diversity we have in terms of institutions, in terms of regions, cultures, topographies, the economies, the products that we can have, and celebrate it, demand it, so that the market could sustain that differentiated production, differentiated systems. Otherwise they won't exist, and naturally we will become much less resilient as a country. So that's the third principle I wanted to frame: unlock the power of diversity for resilient future. And the last is unlocking the power of technology and AI. And I think we have a good base developed thanks to the DPIs, etc., that we have been investing in satellites. Viksit Bharat does require shocking and jolting us. So well done there. Where was I? DPIs, right? We have invested and created a great foundation. The opportunity is out there. AI is also emerging. While there is so much said on what all it can do, one of the potential use cases I'm deeply interested in is that AI is making hyper personalization, very, very cheap. What does it mean? That earlier, 2 decades ago, if a farmer needed to be advised by government extension system based on that farmer situation, the crop, the region, the agroecological conditions, the transaction cost would be huge. But now, because of AI and all the data that can go there, and much more personalized advisory is possible for each farmer. Suddenly, context specific, diverse, and serving context specific advisory and services or products to diverse population is possible. You don't need to homogenize everything. You don't need to come up with umbrella crops and package of practices and just push downwards, because that's what economies of scale would have suggested. Now, the diseconomies of diversity have been reduced significantly by AI, particularly around the information economy, and I think we need to capitalize on that, and the sustain the diversity and capitalize the diversity. That was the third principle. And then just in terms of examples, right? India is developing Bhashani, right? Earlier, the transaction cost between multiple regions to transact, converse would be very high, but now with Bhashani translation is possible. So diversity can actually exist without pushing everyone to same language, same platform, etc. So let me conclude with that. The ask, the urge is, let's build our muscles to think for the Viksit Bharat the way it deserves, and let's elevate the possibility planes for that conversation, and let's come up with something that our kids really would love, that we created for them. Viksit Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you, Apoorve, for doing complete justice to the topic, which says looking at India beyond just the numbers, right? And not just giving us principles, but actually giving us examples of how it can be done and validating it through what you have already seen happening through many generations. So that is giving us, broadens our perspective that we can actually think of a very different development model, and perhaps it can become a model, as Nikita was saying, for many other developing economies across the world. So final panelist is Rahul. He's been a bit late, but I think he has a very interesting perspective. He's from the Foundation of Economic Development. Very minimal state, pro-capitalist is what I understand of whatever I've heard from you previously, but I think that view is very, very important. So, but Rahul, you'll have a little lesser time because I would love to take audience questions and close on time. So yes, over to you, Rahul.
No problem. It is only fair that I get less time. Yeah, only fair that I get less time. My apologies to everyone for not showing up on time. My mistake entirely. Thank you so much for being here on Saturday afternoon on what I think is a very important topic. Hopefully you think so too. Can we do a quick show of hands to a statement? If you agree, please raise your hand. Economic growth is the most important thing for human welfare by far. So, less than half the room, right? Do you think children not dying is a good thing? Show of hands. How many people think it's a good thing if children don't die? The death of children is a bad thing. There are some people with their hands down. I would like to ask their opinion on this. But anyway, 200 years ago, right? The human species was around 70,000 years old. But the percentage of children that used to die was almost exactly the same as it ever used to be. Does anyone want to give me a number? Some people have heard me on this topic before, so I would request them to keep their peace. But does anyone else want to give me a percentage? What percentage of children used to die before the age of 5, 200 years ago? Anybody? Do you have a guess? Yes? Anyone else have another guess? 30 is a pretty high number, by the way. It means 1 out of every 3 children used to die before the age of 5. Anyone else? 50. So, much closer and almost correct. It used to be approximately 45% of all children, which means 1 out of every 2 children born used to die before the age of 5. Anyone know what the number is today? IMR is It's not that low, but it's closer. But this is under 5 mortality rate. Global. Indian is approximately the same as global. In rich countries, yes, global average is 4-ish%, Indian average is 3.5-ish%, right? So, in a rich country, almost no child has to die. And I'm going to assert to you, and we can debate this later because I don't have enough time. Yeah, I mean, the rich is usually thought that way. I'm also rich in many ways in that sense, but yes. In the rich countries, almost no child has to die. Even in relatively poor countries, very few children have to die because in the last 200 years, one thing and one thing alone has changed. The world has grown year after year after year. We have had sustained economic growth. Right? This is just the death of children. I'm just using that as a shocking statistic, but you can think of any metric that you care about. Poverty rates, literacy rates, the lives of women, right? Pretty much any metric that you care about. Life expectancy total, life expectancy at any given age, right? Every single one of these metrics has gone up in only the last 200 years. In India, after independence, we chose a model that did not give us economic growth. All of our metrics suffered. Poverty rate in India in 1991, 45 years after we chose a governance model that was supposed to be for the poor, made almost no difference to poverty in this country at all. In 1991, we said, let us not worry first about the poor, let us first worry, or let people worry about themselves. Let us not worry at all, let people worry about themselves. We will not control every last aspect of their lives. 20 years later, the poverty rate had dropped by 20 percentage points. In a country of 1.5 billion people, that's 300 million people that were no longer living in abject poverty. Just in 20 years. Today, Payal quoted some numbers earlier. I was listening on the phone even though I wasn't here. In the last 10 years, we have seen a massive movement of people out of poverty again. And again, I will assert to you, this is only and only because of economic growth. Right? Yes, human beings care a lot about other things than economic growth. But economic growth is not, it's an abstract concept, right? Economic growth is simply the total of everything that human beings do. Right? So we shouldn't, like, economists have picked this thing called GDP. It's just a representation of reality. It's just people counting everything that people are doing, everything that people are producing, and calling it a number, right? It's like if you go take a final exam and you do very well in that final exam, that's not actually something real. What is real is what's inside your head, right? What's real is all the hours that you spent mugging up for it. Well, some people don't do too much, but hopefully some people sit and understand the concepts, right? That's real. And that's what GDP really is. GDP is just and it catches a lot of flack unnecessarily, but GDP is just a final exam result. What it's counting is simply what is every single person producing, consuming, interacting, when you do it through markets. So it doesn't count the love that you hold for your parents. It doesn't count you holding your child and taking care of it at home. These are all important things. But these things also don't need measures or policies, right? These things need societies to solve for them separately on their own.
Even if they did need measures, you have to have a number.
Well, and there are some, but those measures are usually not very good. Everyone always asks me, what about happiness? People measure happiness. So Bhutan tries, right? Does a very bad job of it, but let's not, does a very good job of marketing, but doesn't do a very good job of the actual measurement itself. So even happiness, right? Happiness as a metric has a number of different problems with it. That's why people don't typically try to use happiness as a metric. But when you do measure it, even happiness correlates with wealth. And we complicate things, right, by talking big words, big numbers. Who needs complication? Do any of you need to be told that it is better to be rich than to be poor? Is anybody surprised by this information? No. Everybody knows it's better to be rich than poor, right? You only need special types of people to be able to convince you that no, it is better to be poor than to be rich. The other thing though, right, like, and this is where the beyond GDP aspect of it comes, is that GDP actually tends to be correlated with every other good thing in life. So the environment was being discussed, right? Which are the countries that have the best environmental conditions in the world? Rich country. US? Anybody been? You should go. I've only been one time, but beautiful country. Completely clean air, completely clean water. UK, Europe, all of these places. Sorry? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. On average. Yeah. I mean, it's good enough for their life expectancy to be almost exactly where you would expect it to be. Sir, these are the data. We can debate about it later, but these are the data, right? Absolutely. Let's argue about it later. Sure, right? At the very least, it is better than 95% of other countries, right? It may be below where its wealth predicts it to be.
Okay, let's, yeah.
We can debate it.
Yeah.
We can debate it. Yeah, we can debate it. No problem.
Yeah.
All of Europe, right? Perfectly happy, perfectly fine environment. Even if the US is bad, one exception that proves the rule, right? Every developing country has a problem with water, right? So the point is that while GDP matters a lot, it's not the measurement of it that we should be worried about, right? What are the conditions that produce this thing called GDP? What are the conditions that produce human beings doing things more efficiently, producing more with less effort, producing more output with less input? That's what GDP efficiency is all about, right? So the same thing that used to take 100 humans to produce, today takes one, all the other 99 can do something else. And that something else includes science, it includes technology, it includes art, it includes all kinds of other things, right? Yeah, so that's what GDP growth is about. It's about efficiency, it's about doing things better, and ultimately, as much as data matters, I'm a data nerd myself, but data is an exam result, right? It is not what determines what you should do and what you should not do, right? The exam is not going to be the same next year, right? If you try to mug up the questions that are in the exam this year, which unfortunately too many people in our government try to do when they try to increase GDP, that's not going to get you the GDP result, right? So the conditions that get you GDP is people like us doing the things that benefit them without hurting others, right? So when you start a business because you see a need around you that you can service profitably, that just means that you can do something for less than it costs somebody else. That means you are producing a net benefit for society. When everybody can do this without fear that somebody will come take your stuff, your taxes will be so high that there is no value to you trying to do anything profitably, you serve the needs of society around you. When government and society creates conditions that people can consistently try to service society, to interact with other human beings around them in ways that are beneficial, then that society grows. And this is what has happened 200 years ago in the world. This is what has happened 30 years ago in India. And we are all reaping the benefits of this, right? And hopefully long may that continue. We go further, we go faster. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rahul, for that very simple and provocative way of telling us getting rich is very, very important, and that would be the macro thing for fixing many of the other challenges that we are facing as society. So I know we are running a bit late. I'm mindful of time. So what we'll do is we'll have a quick round of questions. Be specific. I might direct it to the right panelist, or you could also say. But more than comments, specific questions that would help. And I'll promise to wrap up in about 10 minutes. Yeah, please, and then we can take offline. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're getting a mic. It's useful for the recording as well. Yeah.
Zetsai Raj from the Vision India 2032, which is a capacity development nation building movement. We work at the intersection of national security, capacity, and sustainability. Apoorve, hats off to what you said, and even more better, Rahul, straight to the point. You should have been a sniper, which is exactly what I want to congratulate you upon. It's not the GDP. GDP has been passive. We've been working on other metrics, different universities around, and close-knit, can't name the people, where it's been the information warfare from the West and the universities, in particular the intellectuals, who have hijacked the narrative in the past, I would say about 70 to 80 years, where money is the central essence of this particular flawed model that has been thrust upon various different nations, developing nations, not the developed ones. However, continuing and focusing on what you said and other professors said, it's a discussion, so it's not a classroom. Thank you. Can you please not pounce on me? Thank you. I have the floor. Can I take a minute before that? Thank you very much. So, if you're looking at the Viksit 2047, which is why we're all gathered here, the question arises is, are we focusing on the GDP? Are we focusing on the capability? GDP has been the shadows, and the countries which have focused on the shadows loses on both aspects. The metric is what we're looking at. How do we get there is what we are all gathered here, I believe. So in that regard, I came late. Apologies for the panelists here. However, I think I got the drift of it. Qualitative versus quantity. It is both, actually. And how we get there in preparing not just our kids, but also the kids' kids and the generations after that is what we're focused on. In that manner, what resources should be developed? What resources should be allocated? Like I have half my classmates are Mawadis. How we could generate that, allocate it, distribute it, and own it up to bring in the social cohesion is only one person who alluded to it. There are many more metrics.
Thank you for that. But exactly, that is also the spirit of the conversation. We are not concluding on something. We are trying to, at this point, open up the conversation that there are various ways of doing this, and I hope the panelists are also saying what you are saying.
I'm
right?
here for the remarks, actually.
And you could see the contrast between the different panelists as well. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for an excellent session. First, we must thank the government for coming up with a vision. Yeah. It really does. There would be no such conversation if you didn't have a vision setting. I think anybody in the corporate sector will tell you this.
Yeah, please.
So India hasn't had one, and we haven't had a number attached to it ever. I've been around in this country reasonably long. So the setting of a number at 12, 7.5, whatever, 6.6, it's up to you. 6 plus 6, up to you. The point that the panel is making, I think, is excellent. We should have a second round, maybe a third. We should qualify those numbers with GDP numbers, beyond just GDP numbers. Sure. Should qualify that, yeah. But the real question is that does the panel actually believe, in a very smart panel, that the government set this without thinking any of this? You mean they don't know the numbers at the district level, GDP? They don't know the numbers at the state level, GSDP? They don't know that. How did they set? So obviously there are some parameters which we didn't cover, one. And second is perhaps there's external pressure, which is, I think, Nikita's international pressure from world bodies saying this is how we define development. The UN has very clear ideas of what is development, education, health, yeah. Sure. So could you just answer that? I mean, why does the panel believe that we have had no discussion around these before setting the 12%.
Okay.
Which-
So I'll have Nikita possibly take that because
I would
although
like to take
she's
that
here
here.
in her personal capacity, not representing the government. But
No, no,
is
any
there-
capacity. I don't much care any
So
capacity.
is there a particular thesis behind what is, if there's a 2047 number that Niti Aayog has given of $30 trillion economy, or how much growth should happen year on year to get there? What is the thesis behind it? Has there been a calculation or? Is
I mean,
there-
it sounds top down. You've taken your 12%.
Got the point.
You know,
Or is it more data driven?
you've done your 72 rule, but
Yeah, later on.
yeah, yeah. Please, let's get an answer.
Yeah.
So I think firstly, the Niti Aayog report which is given.
You can just be closer to the mic.
So I know. I think it's working now. Is it working now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I think firstly, the number which you're talking about, is it the 30 trillion USD economy number? No. So then actually what what I would say is that firstly what the government is doing with the numbers in terms of, I'll give you the Finance Commission example. So Finance Commission is, because I worked on it directly, and there might be a lot of numbers which other departments and other divisions are coming out with. If I've not worked directly, I would restrain myself from commenting on that. With the Finance Commission numbers, actually, I worked on the debt numbers for the states, and we had assumed that what growth percentages. So it's not that so we gave basically 2047 में borrowing states कितना borrow करेंगे, हर state में एक borrowing का requirement कितना होगा, and national borrowing का requirement कितना होगा in 2047, 2030, and for the commission itself, the report published till 2031. So 31 number will be actually implemented, and 47 numbers we have given as a representation that what it might look like. So for that, we have actually seen कि growth का क्या number होगा. We have consulted with the states. We have taken one number for this कि कितने period में, it cannot be extrapolated for the entire stretch till 2047, right? So we have taken those numbers, and then we have come up with the nominal GDP number which would be, and then we have seen. So it's not a top down number, I would say, कि हमने सोचा 2047 में total borrowing कितना होगा. What
So
we
the
have done
borrowing,
is,
so the borrowing is the base.
no, this is
Particularly for the commission's work that
Yes.
she has done, not
for the work which I have done, because I was working on chapter which was dealing with the borrowing requirements of the government. So I'm telling you, other departments, other divisions, other ministries might be doing a similar exercise for what topic they are dealing with. So I am just trying to explain you that for my exercise, for my purpose, I try to look at it that from each state's perspective. I did not drill it down कि district का क्या होगा. I looked at it because it's very difficult to even do this exercise कि हर district का borrowing capacity कितना होगा. So for states,
So,
we did that.
to
And then we
summarize, I
came-
think what she's trying to say is it's not a figment of imagination. It has come from a
Exactly.
bottom-up collection of data, and it has been a rigorous
So
process.
what are the others besides borrowing?
No, I mean, just for getting a number on that. Yeah. Yeah, but she can only speak about what chapter of the Finance Commission that she worked on. But there's nobody else from the government here. So if there is another calculations that
No, my question is, why is the panel not talking to the government?
not talking to the government, they're
Yeah.
always talking to the government. I
No,
mean,
no.
they're all yes.
Ask the government, what are the parameters you've taken, and is it bottom up or top down? Why are you wasting brilliant minds like the Cornell girl here on things like just guessing that perhaps, if I did a satellite image and I got this kind of light, and he says, no, listen.
I mean, I can
have
speak
some-
on
I have-
their behalf and we'll move
Yeah,
on.
I'll
I mean,
I'll close by
everyone
saying,
here is closely involved in engaging with government. I'm pretty sure they're sharing
I'm
their
glad,
research.
yeah, I'm glad.
She herself said that MOSPI has accepted her recommendations on an alternate way of measuring informal economy
Excellent,
and all
yeah.
that. Yeah. So
Yeah, but I'll just close by saying that I have some vision setting experience over the last 40, 45 years, but mostly corporate.
Okay.
So when we look at a basket of goods that we want to increase by territory, we have very, very specific ways of going it. I don't want to name the brands because you know all of them. I don't want to name the companies because all those brands and companies are very well known to all of you. And it's a very difficult exercise, but it's bottom up and it's top down and it's middle out.
You want to take that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if your experience has been corporate, may I recommend to you this documentary called Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. Please do watch it, and it will teach you a lot about how government works.
No, okay.
It's another
Not
question.
account the corporate debts. We'll have a question here.
No,
and
I've seen-
there.
I've
And
seen
then
that-
we'll
I've
do
seen the
offline.
series.
Yeah, we'll take one here and the last one there. Yes.
Hi, hope I'm audible.
Yes.
My intensive economy. And now we are seeing, all this automation, like there are dark stores and all this, which are more of the capital intensive models. So where do you think the, sort of the, either we can term it as pushback should come? Should it be from the market forces, the entrepreneurs, or perhaps for Indian context, should government build some, protective measures to actually build a model which is, inclusive and labor intensive, which I think India needs?
Sure. I'll have Apoorve take that. So how do you create the demand from the people for a different, maybe a market to play a role? Yes.
You did answer, like with the green economy is one of
With green economy, even with AI, he was speaking something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think at the bottom you're trying to also understand, like, is the question about what kind of services exist in the system, or whether the risk to jobs is going to blow up, and how do we address
Is it
that?
the responsibility of the society or the state to take us towards the labor-intensive economy?
I think the answer is always going to be both,
Yeah.
because without participation, it won't ever happen. And I think, but also one thing that comes to my mind is with AI, I think we are just sometimes also overtly afraid about what all it eat away. With like every other technology that has happened in past, it took up some roles from the society, but then there is so much always to solve for in the society, and we need to grow. It unlocks those opportunities. I think therefore we need also entrepreneurs in the system who now pick on new problems that we need to solve for, so that we create that well-being. So a lot of entrepreneurship needs to be enabled, and that will also solve a lot. So not just society. I mean, when you say society and government, I think of entrepreneurs also somewhere.
Okay. Thank you. We'll have one last question there.
Hello everyone, my name is Khyati and I'm a postgraduate student of Public Policy and Sustainable Development. I have just a question, just a point that you guys were telling that the agricultural laborers are continuously moving into the construction sector. So this is very closely related to what I am also researching on these days. So India has recently seen a boom in the trend of UPIs, and it is one of the most successful models of Indian economy also. I just want to understand that these laborers, I may be connecting these two dots, but then these people who are coming in from the primary areas, they are also participating equally in the financial inclusions, and I think they are also like a backbone for like increasing financial inclusions, because there's a shift. So I just want to understand that how policymakers are they like keeping these things in mind, because or are they just digitally visible and not visible, and are they just visible as an informal worker in the society, because they are not formalized workers, most of them actually, who are shifting. So like, are policymakers thinking of making digital inclusion plus economic inclusion for informal workers specifically, because UPI is rising, there's a participation, and still there's a lot of informality that's happening in the economic space.
Nikita, you want to take that or Payal?
So very quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think this government has been extremely clear with one priority from day one, which was financial inclusion. Pradhan Mantri, I forgot the name of the scheme. PM
Jandan.
Jandan Yojana, yeah, the PM Jandan Yojana, and there are so many other schemes which are run by the Department of Financial Services, which is a part of Ministry of Finance, which specifically wants to increase financial inclusion. This is something which, not just as a slogan, to be honest, I'll give you a very quick example. We have shifted to Kartavya Bhavan from North Block before a few months. So there are so many drives, which are happening within Kartavya Bhavan, and there have been instructions from the secretary, from the ministry itself, that all the people who are our staff, all the grade B, grade C, grade D officers, all the staff members, our drivers, everybody has to have a bank account, has to know how to use it. So I think 2 weeks back only, we were instructed that our staff has to be released to attend this workshop, which was happening within Kartavya Bhavan. So I think it is very clear for this government, financial inclusion has remained a very important part. And not just nationally, I'll tell you that even globally, the UPI model, we have been demonstrating it to so many other countries, and they're also adopting it. So this is just one, UPI is just one part of the entire digital public infrastructure which we are creating. But I think, yeah, very much.
It's a priority of the government. Payal, want to say something?
To answer the second part of your question, which was about the informal labor and if the government is doing anything. So the one slide which I did not show was movement in the urban mail. So the rural mail that are shifting from the farmers, when they come to the urban, there has been a lot of increase in the percentage points in the gig economy. So they have actually started participating more as drivers and also as someone who actually give the goods to the people. So you can think of Zepto and so on and so forth. So the point is that have specific measures been taken for these informal labor to formalize them? Probably not. Even the surveys that we are doing, we've asked them to include specific codes for the gig economy, because right now we have to go and see what is the data showing. Not just that, also the specific kind of skilling that needs to come. Because it cannot be the case that farmers के पास यही option है, या तो वो लोग gig economy में जाएं or either they are going in this sector. So the kind of skilling that needs to come, the kind of education that needs to be given, all of these are also very important issues that need to be thought of.
Okay, thank you. And as our honorable person there said, this is an ongoing conversation for many more sessions, because we can't be concluding on Viksit Bharat in a 1.5 hour session. So we promise to do more of this. We'll do that, and I'll request the panelists to maybe spend some more time after we formally close, so that individual questions that we were not able to take could be taken up. I also see a lot of research ideas coming out of such conversations, and we have very eminent members here who could possibly, you could work with them on developing this, because it's not going to happen through just conversations like this. A lot of deep work has to happen. So you could also reach out to them personally. I request Arvind to formally come over and do the vote of thanks.
Yeah, I think before the vote of thanks, I'm going to shamelessly pitch a couple of things. One is, of course, we do this series every month. For those of you who want to stay connected, who want to get an update on what is happening, I would suggest please follow us on our social media channels. It's the Rashtam School of Public Leadership on Twitter, Insta, on all the channels, and also follow CEEW. We're organizing it jointly, so they also keep sharing updates on this program. So that's one. The second update is, of course, this is all just theory. We've just discussed, we've just spoken about it. But apart from this, Rashtram, Rishihood and CEEW are working on a roadmap which will be coming out in the next couple of months, hopefully. We'll put it up in the public for opinions, for thoughts, for your comments, disagreements, for all of that to share. But do keep checking our social media channels, do stay in touch so that we can keep you updated. Those of you who are interested could drop in a message, so that's always there. But I think more importantly, it's what I would want to do is thank all of you, because it's a Saturday, you're all here, you've all taken the time to be here and to listen and discuss and disagree primarily. A lot of disagreements going around in the panel. I think Rahul tends to bring out that aspect of people who disagree with him vehemently. Also, thanks to the speakers who've all come here. As a token of our appreciation, I'm going to request if Professor Mathur could kindly felicitate them. Divya, if you could just bring it along. So, thank you. To Nikita. He's given the name Rishihood. To Apoorve as well, yes. And also Rahul for taking. I think he has one from the last year's boot camp also. Yeah, I think like we did in the beginning, we'll close with a minute of silence, and the speakers are here if you want to pick up some topic offline and also take their email IDs, the LinkedIn IDs, free to do that. But we'll close with a minute of silence. So yeah, requesting all of you. Okay, and thank you once again for joining. Yeah.